All right, welcome to this episode of Living Vogue Connect. I'm excited about today's episode because I've got one of our newest Living Vogue agents, Carlo, with us today. And while he is not only a new agent, he is a younger agent, but I think wise beyond his years. And I say that because in conversations with you, you've said things where I'm like, wow. I think back to when I was your age. And I'm like, I didn't have that. You know, that wasn't there. It took me a while to build some of the qualities and characteristics that you have. So I applaud you highly for that.
Appreciate that. Great to be here.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we talked about was mindset.
Yeah.
And how mindset can have such a huge impact on your life, not only on the day-to-day basis, but also overall, just in your life and towards your goals. I've always said mindset matters most. I believe that beyond anything else is that when you have the right mindset, you can achieve more than you ever think you can.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about mindset and how having that ability can really take your business, your goals to the next level. But let's first kind of define, okay, what is mindset? What are the benefits there? And how can it help you achieve success, especially in real estate where it's can be an up and down market?
I think mindset it's such a big spectrum. You know, I mean, it can mean so many different things for many people. And I think life is all about perspective. You know, this conversation today is as a perspective, and I think people can gain off of that and add it to their portfolio or also their mindset as well. But I think mindset for me means just the state of where you're at in terms of the time you put in for yourself, the reflection process that you have, and also how hard that you really want to go at what you truly love and dream of. I've always thought that mindset and discipline is going to beat motivation every day.
I like
because
that.
There's going to be a
Say
lot
that
of
again?
that mindset and discipline can beat out motivation any day. And I believe that because motivation, you're going to have a lot of days where you don't have motivation. I've certainly had many of them where you just feel like you don't want to get up and you just kind of want to go back in bed. But
Sure.
I think it's really important to get up and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that. So I want to say that again. Mindset and discipline beat out motivation.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm going to remember that one. So let's just talk about your personal journey. What inspires you and what helps you develop the mindset to achieve your goals and be where you are today?
I think for me, it all started at a young age. I mean, I've always had I grew up in Key West. I was born in New Jersey, but I grew up in Key West with my grandpa.
Not a bad place to grow up.
Not a bad place to grow up. It's it gives you perspective.
Sure.
Because for my grandpa, it was his resting spot. And for me, it was just the beginning. So that perspective took a big toll on me, just understanding where he was at in his life. And I think what's brought me to real estate today is I lived on a dock full of people that were 50, 60, 70 years old, one of them being my grandpa. And I had to learn how to respect them, talk on their level. I used to run up and down the dock barefoot with no shirt on as a kid. And my grandpa used to say to me, "No, you can't do that. You got to put a shirt on. You got to start putting a shirt on. You're going to need to do that one day." And I look back on it now and I'm like, oh, I follow those same little traits that he's built to me. And or gave to me. And I think growing up, I've always kind of been pushed towards being older than most of my generation. And I've always said it's a blessing because I think if you're ahead of anything, you're going to definitely be able to look back on everyone else and be proud of what you've done.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to... like I had a lot of adversities, we were speaking off camera about the hurricane and, my grandpa also passed away and it was a little switch, and what it ended up doing was propel me towards it's go time.
Okay.
And it's time to be what everyone else thinks you can't be. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. Now I like that, you pick up on those little things that somebody tells you here and there, and at the time they may not seem like they're going to be life-changing moments.
Yeah.
But you mentioned discipline earlier as well.
Yeah.
And I think discipline plays a key role in that. So let's talk about like some daily disciplines or daily habits that you can recommend to help somebody really kind of get in that mindset, and also pay attention to all those little things that are happening on a daily basis that can shift your life into a whole new realm.
Absolutely. I think I've always thought that the small, minute details mean the most. A lot of times, I think a lot of times we focus on the big picture, which is not a bad thing. I think it's really, if you could see the clear picture, it's very good, because it means that you're in a positive realm of where you need to be. But I think it's just like a puzzle. Sometimes we're missing one of those little pieces, and I think it's important to find those little pieces. And some of the things I do every day, we're both in real estate, but health and fitness for me has been the biggest thing. And I know I'm young, I'm young, but I think it's helped me so much, because when I'm in the gym, or when I'm doing strength training, or I'm staying consistent with my meals, making sure no bad ingredients or anything, it takes so much discipline to say no to, like I used to love drinking root beer. I used to drink Coke with my grandpa, and it takes a lot to say no, but it feels good in return, because the more that you do that, you're just going to stack up so much worth on yourself. And when you're able to just be able to, like I said, propel yourself forward in that aspect, you just create such an animal. And it's a really good animal, like I said, the gym, health, and also for people it may be different, but for me it's like prayer or meditation. For some other people, I like to write down my thoughts. I love to talk. A lot of times reading is also great for me. A lot of good books that I've read, and just also connecting with my loved ones. I think that's really important. I think sometimes when we're on this journey of progression and becoming our better selves, I think we sometimes leave behind the people that are most important to us.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, it's not an easy journey, right?
Yeah.
I think people can have such an easy life nowadays. Everything is kind of hand-fed to us.
Yeah.
So doing those daily disciplines, things like going to the gym, eating healthy, even reading a book, who reads books anymore?
Yeah.
I do,
Yeah.
because it's one of those things that I've created as a daily habit to help me get in the right mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. And there was a old mentor of mine who would always say the pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. And if you can focus on those daily disciplines over time, those things become easy. They may be hard at the beginning. It's like anything.
Yeah.
You go to the
Absolutely.
gym. It's not easy at the beginning. Your muscles are sore, and you're like, oh, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But eventually, you get stronger. You get more endurance.
It feels great.
Yeah.
Because I've always looked at it as, I think in life, for the people that want to be something that's unexpected in life, you always have your haters. You always have the people that say, oh, you can't do it, or it's going to be too tough for you.
Yeah.
I've always been the one that says, like, watch me, because I've always thought that if it's in this world and it's created, it's a thing, like maybe this water bottle or our phones. If it is a thing, it's possible. If it's here, it's possible. I think most people think of, driving the dream car they want or the dream house, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ever going to get that. I always say to myself, when I get it.
Yeah.
Because it's not the things that matter, it's just the experience of it. I think life is all about experience and being able to express that to others. That if you want this experience, you can have it. Just go for it.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just as easy as doing it. And like you said, a lot of people are handed things, and that's to each their own. Whatever decisions that goes on behind the scenes there is fine. But I think the character that builds from the small things that you do in your life, it's going to be it's just like every transaction. The more that you build it, the more come in. Once you're at transaction 100, the first one is like, oh man, That's so long ago, but it builds you to that 100th.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about those haters, because I think mindset can have a huge impact on relationships,
Yeah.
whether it's, relationships with clients, colleagues, friends, family. So how does having a positive mindset affect your relationships, positive or negative way?
I think it goes both ways. I think there's the certain people in your life that will embrace it and say, "Wow, like I'm incredibly proud of what you're doing and how your thought process is taking you to this certain level of success that you want to achieve." And then there's also the other side where sometimes if you outscale somebody just because you're doing one step more every day, some people get mad and it's jealousy. And it's not that me or you has anything more than them. It's just that we put in the time. And I think a lot of people get stuck up on blaming somebody else instead of taking action themselves.
Sure.
I think that's a big problem we have. I think as a world, we tend to point the finger before taking self-accountability. Because there's, even with days of me, going to the gym, there's days that I've skipped. And then I'm like, well, I should have went, And
It's nobody else's fault,
which
right?
is nobody else. It's me, And
Yeah.
then I have to self-assess and say, well, you should have. And then the next day I do better, And
Yeah.
I think every day is a fresh start. You have a fresh start to do a completely different approach, a completely different mindset. Every day is different. We talked about opportunities and how they may, come along each day. One day I might do floor time today. No one walks in, but tomorrow might be the day someone walks in. And there's just those opportunities that are out there. And I think I found that sometimes the closest people to you sometimes want to bring you down the most. And that's nothing, or the closest people you think that are close to you sometimes.
Yeah.
You think that they're the people that you can trust, but I think they're out to get you sometimes.
Man,
And there's nothing wrong with it.
Secretly rooting in the back.
Exactly.
to see you
They're
fail.
hoping that you don't get to that certain level.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that, the success that I will have in my life, or the progress I have in my life, it won't change me. I know I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, well, the money in this won't change me." I genuinely think that, because it's not about the money. It's not about these things, about the experience. And I want to share that with others, especially. That's what I can't wait for.
Yeah, awesome. So let's be completely transparent, right?
Yeah.
We can have the best positive mindset and really focus on always being happy. But the reality is we all have stress. We all have challenges.
Yep.
So how do you maintain focus when you have those stressful or challenging situations?
This is going to be controversial.
Okay.
Maybe.
I like controversial,
Maybe.
so we're good.
Maybe. I like stress.
Okay.
Because pressure makes diamonds, right? And
Yep.
I'm sure we all heard that saying. I think the more stress you're under, the more complete you will be.
Okay.
And there's a lot of times where, even with me saying that, obviously sometimes we don't want to be stressed out, but I found that in my hardest days, or some people call them failures, or some people call them, downtime, whatever you want to call it, I find that I learn the most in my hardest moments. And when you look at it, if me and you were to go out to dinner tonight, that's a good time. But we're just reflecting. We're not learning anything from it. We're just reflecting and communicating and connecting. So when I think about it, and that's not a bad thing, that is necessary for success, I believe. But I think you learn the most when you're under stress, when you're tested. I've always thought that when you're under stress, you're tested to see if you could be the best you. And I like that, because each time it's going to get higher and higher. And you just have to see if you could keep pulling up the rope.
Yeah.
And some people can't. Some people don't want to.
Again, it goes back to that discipline of realizing where you are and how you can learn from it.
And I thrive off of that. I love it, because it's what's gotten me here. I think back a couple of months ago when, I wasn't here, and I thought to myself, like, ever since joining Living Vogue, like, I have gotten so far already, because it's all about the atmosphere and the people that you're around. And where I was at before, I got to a point where I was like, man, like, I got to figure out where and the decisions I need to make to propel myself in that right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I'm sitting here and I have no problem with anything. I made the decisions and I figured it out.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you just gotta be patient.
Yep.
You just gotta trust that process. You know,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we tell ourselves, "I don't know what to do." You do.
Mm-hmm.
You're just gonna have to pull it out of you a little bit.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. I think that's a great segue to my next question, because you mentioned earlier the mindset and discipline beats out motivation all the time. A lot of people can be highly motivated one day and then the next day they're just done, right?
Yeah.
So how do you maintain that persistent positive outlook on life and keep that mindset going so that you can achieve your goals? And really, also, how does having a positive mindset affect your goal setting and what you can achieve?
So I think for me, like the perspective I like to use is, I love cars, so I use like
cool.
I love Mustangs, so a V8 motor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically a V8 motor that never shuts off,
Okay.
and that's how I look at myself. Because even we spoke off camera, even when I'm about to go to bed, I'm still thinking about what I can do the next day better.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily need to be work; it may be personal and stuff like that. But I think it's I think to sustain all of these things, I honestly look back to my younger self, and when you're young, you have dreams, and when you're young, you're like, oh, I want this, I want that. And I'm still
Mm-hmm.
young, but when I was really young, I'm like, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that, and I always remind myself, you got to keep up your word for that younger self.
Absolutely.
I think you
That's
promise
strong.
yourself all these things, and I think a lot of times we don't go through with it, and we're just like, it's okay, I can do it tomorrow.
Or we allow others to crush our dreams, right?
We allow others to make the decisions for us when me and your life is gonna be totally different from each other's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we may have, the same amount of sales, or we may work on the same sale, but our experiences are different. And that's the beauty of life is, I think if you take it one day at a time and realize that you're working on a goal that's bigger than you can even conceive in your mind, that motivates me.
Yeah.
And, I say that discipline and all that stuff outweighs motivation.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I'm able to constantly create motivation because I always think to myself, it's possible. It's always possible.
Yeah.
And that never has shut off, even in my hardest days. It's a hard thing to explain because it just happens for me.
Mm-hmm.
I keep going. And I love that and I wouldn't change a thing. It makes me happy. It makes me be able to look forward to when I get to give back to my family,
Mm-hmm.
and help and provide the way that I've always wanted to provide.
Yeah.
It's just it's a blessing.
I love that.
I definitely love that.
All right, so obviously it's ingrained in you from a young age. This is who you are. Like we said, not everyone is like that, and I asked this question earlier and you answered it, but just give me some bullet points of what somebody can do to get into that positive mindset, whether it's vision boarding,
Yep.
or writing out your daily disciplines. What are like
And
four
I've tried a
major?
lot of it. I've tried a lot of things, and I honestly think the most thing or the biggest thing that I think a lot isn't talked about a lot, and it's obvious. It's the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we need to step in front of the mirror and take self accountability. I think before we can move on, it's just like lying to somebody. I think before you can move on in a relationship, you have to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Honesty honestly rules everything. I think if we were dishonest realtors, I think a lot of realtors have, like with every industry, there's good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think honestly, people are fixated on the bad most of the time.
Sure.
So when they look at realtors, like, oh, we don't want to work with you because you're going to take this or that, or you're going to. But I think the people like you and me that are going to be honest, it goes so far.
Mm-hmm.
It expands through our whole lifetime. And then we're going to pass one day and be like, man, the honesty took me all the way here to the end of my life. And I think if you could step in front of the mirror and take self accountability and be honest with yourself, that's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of times I think that we give ourselves the benefit of the doubt and we say, oh, we're okay.
Yeah.
We're not. We have to be brutally honest with ourselves. I think that comes back to also self-assessing and kind of in a positive way, judging yourself. You know, I think like the sense of like Judgment Day, you know, judging yourself in this life is so important because I think we give ourselves a lot of slack too. We were like,
Absolutely.
oh, we could just
It's
lay back.
easier to just be okay with.
It's easier to
where
be
you
okay.
are.
And I think that is like the first step to really moving forward. And then you could start implementing all the little things. I mean, I couldn't stress enough how much diet and health has improved. Like it clears the brain fog.
Sure.
And that's what makes me feel like I can always go. The motor never stops. You know, the gym helps me, of course. You know, that's not for everybody, but honestly, I think the love that you have for other people, you know, whether that's a significant other or, you know, maybe you have a mother or a father or anybody, like, you need to get accountability from anybody to really, fix yourself, I think. I've always thought that before you can help others, you must help yourself. Because if you give somebody your energy without having any energy for yourself, you're going to be broken.
Yep.
And
eventually, that's what everyone's going to see.
Eventually, it's going to be a cycle that everyone does. I think we're at a point right now where everyone's just stuck because they don't know what to do when they really do sometimes. I think that's the biggest confusion is we tell ourselves, I don't know what to do. Sometimes you do. You know, like we talked off camera about like someone not taking that risk. But what if that is the answer?
Yeah.
You ask every day, like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? That is it. And I think we do that personally, and it's always right there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to look in the mirror and figure it out.
Yep. Yeah, so a positive mindset's all about getting uncomfortable for a short time, be disciplined.
Yeah.
You know, make those
I like what
daily
you said,
habits.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Being uncomfortable. I like being uncomfortable more than comfortable. Because if you're uncomfortable, you're constantly finding ways to be stronger. If you're comfortable and you're just sitting in the chair, you know, you never gain anything. You know, the most successful people in the world were never always comfortable. They are always under, you know, stress tests. And, okay, well, maybe this business falls apart. So what are you going to do? You can't just let it all fall.
Yeah.
And I think being uncomfortable is definitely that's a big one.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Carlo, I love this. Again, I think mindset is such an important part of anybody's life, regardless of what business you're in. Not only helps you personally, but will definitely help you professionally. So if anyone has any questions on mindset, wants to sit down and talk to Carlo more, by all means, please reach out to him, carlo@livingvogue.com. Again, appreciate your time today. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Living Vogue Connect. We'll see you next time.